Having been thoroughly impressed by Celine Song's directorial debut in the beautiful film Past Lives, perhaps my expectations were set too high for her sophomore efforts, Materialists. There's no denying the incredible craftsmanship put behind this film, and it does have genuine moments of tenderness, but ultimately, I just found this film to fall short of its full potential, and I left this film feeling disappointed. Now, positively speaking, on a technical level, this film shines. The cinematography is beautiful, the editing is sharp and deliberate, and the soundtrack and the score perfectly complements what's going on screen. Writer-director Celine Song clearly possesses a keen eye for capturing the nuances of the human connection and the emotional complexities of relationships. Particularly, she does a good job of focusing on the ache of longing and the bittersweet nature of love. Those elements right there, to me, were undoubtedly the highlights of this movie. And with that said, I found the first act of this film in particular to be its strongest. The film does a good job in weighing in on the conversation of the often uncomfortable waters of modern dating culture, while it's exploring the themes of self-worth and the increasingly transactional view of marriage, where expectations often rooted in practicality rather than genuine affection. Now, within that first act, we focus on what I found to be the most compelling relationship, and that's the relationship between Dakota Johnson's character, who's a matchmaker by the name of Lucy, and you have Pedro Pascal, who's seamlessly this perfect single guy named Harry, and to me, again, their relationship is actually very compelling and very engaging. Now, for me, I thought Harry was the most interesting character of this film, and I honestly thought Pedro Pascal was the best performance. Like, he just naturally has charm and charisma that just oozes on the screen, and when he's paired with Dakota at the start of this film, that's the most rom-com elements of the film, and that's what drew me into the narrative. Now, unfortunately, once we get past the rom-com elements, we focus more on this relationship, and that's where my issues start to surface. Once the film forgets about Pedro Pascal, the narrative switches over and hinges heavily on Lucy's off-screen past relationship with Chris Evans' character by the name of John. Now, similar to what Celine Song did with Past Lives, where their relationship has this unspoken history between the characters, and we even get like a flashback exploring their relationship, but again, unfortunately, I just never quite bought into their romance. Now, as it pertains to Chris Evans, I'm a fan of his work, whether it be what he did with Captain America, or in films like Gifted, Snowpiercer, Knives Out, or even Defending Jacob. He's a really great performer, but I just found him to be miscast. Like, I thought like maybe an Andrew Garfield would have been better suited for the John character, and it's a little bit of column A and column B, where I didn't think the performance was that great, but I also thought that he was underwritten. Like, the character lacks the depth needed to evoke any emotion, whether that's positive or negative. Now, speaking to another actor I'm a fan of, I like Dakota Johnson. Whether it's Cha-Cha Real Smooth, Suspiria, her role in Peter Brother Falcon, I like her as an actress, but if I'm being honest with you all, I thought she was the weakest link of the cast. The film tries to attempt to have his cake and eat it too, portraying the character as undergoing a transformative change of heart at some point later in the film. And similar to how I felt about the John character, I never felt like her character reached the emotional depth required to completely convey the shift that we see in the character. Don't get me wrong, Dakota Johnson excelled in portraying the more detached, analytical side of the character, but to me, she struggled to capture the vulnerability and the emotional rawness demanded by the more dramatic moments in this movie. Again, I just found the second half of this film to not be as strong as the first half. Like, Celine's script, to me, just seemed unsure of its own direction, as it attempts to tackle too many themes without fully exploring any of them, which in return gave me this sense of incompleteness and a feeling that the narrative is spread way too thin. I'm not gonna sit here and act like this film was terrible, because it does possess moments of relatability and touches of brilliance. However, I felt that these strengths were overshadowed by the forced relationship that I truly never invested in, and a message about changing oneself for the benefit of another person felt problematic to me. By the time the film reached its conclusion, I found myself detached and ultimately disappointed. Now, as you all can see, this film didn't quite live up to my expectations, but I remain optimistic about Celine Song's future as a filmmaker. Although this film might not be her finest work to date, I believe she still has more incredible stories to tell and more creative past lives ahead of her. Materialists unfortunately feels like a missed opportunity and a less than ideal realization of its potential. Again, I'll repeat, this film was not terrible. It just didn't live up to my expectations, and it just lacked the emotional depth and also the performances by these two that I thought were lackluster. But hey, that's my thoughts on the movie. Let me know yours in the comments below. Did you like it? Did you love it? Did you not like it? Which film did you prefer, this one or Past Lives? Let's talk about it all in the comments below.